Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you hit the like button on the way in. We have a special guest today. We're going to be discussing the Mueller testimony that a lot of us watched yesterday morning. And, basically it's been all over social media with people, discussing it, their take on it and everything. And so we're going to briefly discuss, or recap, the Mueller testimony and discuss, what is going on now or what could possibly, end up happening with the President of the United States. And on the phone, I have with me our special guest. Her name is Robin. So everybody say hey to Robin. And Robin, if you can just give us a little information about yourself before we get started, please. And thank you.
Sure. Well, Tanya and I have been friends for quite a long time, since, junior high? Yeah,
Yes.
Junior high. And so I really love politics. I got the bug back in college. And from there, I served as the vice president for Nebraska College Democrats of America. I served as the regional vice president for all of the chapters, college chapters in Nebraska. I was also I did a stint as the vice president of Young Democrats of America when I was young enough to be called a Young Democrat. From there, those two places springboarded me to get involved in my county party. And so I was an LD for my county party. At the time when I got involved, I was the only delegate for LD 11. And let me not use shorthand that some people may not understand. So LD stands for Legislative District. So your state senators are their territories they have boundaries, and then they're called LDs, and they're by numbers. So Ernie Chambers he's the state senator, or was the state senator for LD 11, and that's how I got involved. I was the delegate for the Douglas County Party for LD 11, and then I moved where my delegate position was 11,
Okay.
and there I also got a.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
And then from there, I just got involved at the state level. Doing the same thing at the state level. I also helped start a lot of different constituency caucuses. So people come and knock on your doors during and after the elections, and if they say, hey, I'm with the Black Caucus, or hey, I'm with the Native American Caucus, or hey, I'm with the GLBT Caucus, I had a hand in getting all of those caucuses started at the state party level so that the party looks more inclusive and that people who actually look like everyday Nebraskans have a seat at the table. So that's kind of my little bit of background on that.
All right. So you pretty well versed and well rounded in this area of politics because, whenever like election time comes around, I be hitting you up, I be inboxing you like, Robin, I don't understand this, and like sometimes you'll tag me on different things, on Facebook or whatnot, to help me kind of understand, because I'm just one of those people who's just not, into politics like that, but I always want to step up and represent, do my duties to, go every year. Right. So after the testimony yesterday, the whole nation is, looking at it and trying to decipher or determine, if anything will be done as far as the president and whatnot. So could you briefly kind of explain like what they were trying to do, like what Mueller and them were trying to accomplish?
Well, the first thing he was looking at was to see if there was any interference in the 2016 election. Mm-hmm. The second thing he was trying to see is, was the President of the United States, did he try to interfere in the investigation into interference in the election? So there were two different things he was actually looking at. Mm-hmm. Did Russia interfere? And in us trying to ascertain if Russia interfered, is the president interfering in that investigation? Mm-hmm. So those are the two things that he was looking at. And I think it's very important because, what scares me about all of this is there seems to be this narrative that has come out that makes it look like, oh, Democrats just weren't satisfied with the way the election turned out. They're upset because they lost.
Yeah, that's what they keep calling like the angry Democrats, and this is just a witch hunt, and all that stuff. Which Mueller did say in his testimony, this is not a witch hunt.
Right. Well, and the thing about it is, there used to be a time where Republicans weren't so cozy with the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think about this. You have a person who's running for the highest office in the country, and, he may, all his people are trying to say it was tongue-in-cheek, it was tongue-in-cheek, it was tongue-in-cheek. And I'm not inside the head of our president. However, anybody who's worth their salt is not going to stand at a podium and address the nation and address one of our enemies and says, if you're listening, we want you to interfere in our elections. We want you to investigate a fellow citizen to help me win a race. That's just crazy. Let's just think about it. Let's think about Barack Obama had it in 2008. If he had said, Russia, if you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And Mitch McConnell would have lost his ever-loving mind had he said some stuff like that.
You're right.
And so it begs the question to me, what's the difference? Why is there no outcry that a foreign entity, let's just take Russia off the table, a foreign government, period, interfered in our elections.
Right.
And no one's batting an eye about that. Not only are we not batting an eye, but yesterday, right after the Mueller testimony, I had read where the Senate, the GOP senators in the Senate had put a kibosh on funding for this upcoming, the 2020 election for election fraud. They were so angry at the testimony, they said, we're not going to fund to make sure that a foreign entity doesn't interfere in the presidential election in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Take that, America. We don't care if they interfere, especially if it's going to help us.
That's what it seemed
That's
like.
crazy to me.
Like they don't even care. Like the way the Democrats were coming down on Mueller. Now, I had mentioned the other day to people that a lot of people was like talking about Mueller because I personally, and other people do, think like he has like a touch of dementia. Like he kept asking them to repeat stuff, and like he didn't understand stuff, or he didn't remember.
No.
So I mean,
I
what
don't
do you
think it was
think
that
it
at all.
was?
I think, see, when you are a litigator, you finesse certain things, especially and if you've noticed, if you've ever watched a bunch of these different testimonies before Congress,
Mm-hmm.
what a lot of people who don't want to answer certain questions will do is it's called a filibuster.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've ever seen somebody try to filibuster who we in our community we call her Auntie Maxine, but Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever seen her question and people try to filibuster her because they know she's going to ask tough questions. When they filibuster, they're like, everybody gets an opening statement. They get to make their own statement, and then everybody that sits on the committee, they make their little opening statement, and they start asking questions.
Right.
You got to choose to answer the questions or not. Now, a lot of times, if you don't want to answer it, what you'll do is you'll say, thank you, gentle Congresswoman, for inviting me here today, and blah, 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 blah. And you go on and on and on and on and on, so you don't have to answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of, I haven't got to see the entire testimony because, then I'm this person that got grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
I do plan on watching the whole thing, though, on video. But the bits and pieces I saw when he was doing that, I think Mueller was trying to, because some of the questions that were being asked had nothing to do with why he had been brought there.
Right. He kept saying,
they were gonna mischaracterize this man, and they were gonna beat him up because they think that he's a pawn for the Democrats. So we're gonna misdirection. We're gonna bring in a bunch of other stuff, and we're gonna ask questions that we know he can't answer anyways, and then we're gonna get on TV and say he didn't even answer that question.
And that's what they made it look
like. He can't answer the question. Why would you even ask? You ask it because you know he can't answer it, and then you can beat him over the head with the fact that he didn't answer it. So I think a
Yeah.
lot of times, instead of doing the traditional filibuster, where they're like, "Oh, thank you for bringing me here," blah blah blah, and it's an honor, and you're like, "I didn't ask you all that. I just asked you a question. I just want a simple yes or no. You didn't tell me how much you love being here and all this stuff." He was saying, "Could you repeat that? Well, could you clarify that?" Well, I don't think the man has dementia at all. And I think, and who started that mess was Kellyanne Conway, and she's a special kind of person. Like, she's the last person who is talking about honor, integrity, and someone's mental capacity.
Okay.
When her own husband says that her boss is racist and she's still working there, I have to question. I just have to question her moral
Morals,
standing
integrity.
as a
Right.
person.
Right. Well, I know one thing he kept saying, like, I can't answer certain questions because, ongoing investigations. And how many people have already been, sentenced?
Oh, if I remember right, I think there's 37 indictments that have been handed down already. I have tagged you in something yesterday because
I saw that.
looked it up, how many indictments and everything.
Let me see if I can find
And
it.
there's a lot of indictments that have been handed down, and that's the problem. Like, and it hasn't just been handed down at the federal level, because if you also remember when all this stuff first started going down and the president's minions, that's what I'm going to call them, all started dropping like dominoes, he started hinting about using the power of, not impeachment, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. This is horrible. This is so horrible.
Oh, take your time. Take your time. Oh, and I found that post, too.
A pardon, I'm sorry. The presidential pardon. He was going to hand out pardons like it was candy.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Mueller team did that was so genius to me was they started working with anytime any of these crimes were committed in other states, not just the District of Columbia, not just at the federal level, they would pass that information on to the state's attorneys. So if you remember, like, a lot of those people came from New York, and they were committing a lot of these crimes in New York. So what he did is he also he said, look, I can't do anything with it. This is a crime, but I can't do anything with this. But I'm going to turn it over to your office, and you can look at it and judge it by your own merits and see if you have a prosecutable case, and you can prosecute them at the state level. Because the president can pardon federal, he can't pardon state.
Okay.
That's on a governor to pardon. So what happened was then people started getting indicted at a 2-tier level.
Okay.
And so that's why he can't speak on a lot of those things, because a lot of those people are still being investigated at a state level, because he passed on so much information to these other to the attorney general, the state attorney general.
Right.
So no, I'm not going to say anything, because that could tip, that state attorney general's case's hand. If you want to know what they have, they have to turn over some evidence.
Right.
To the defense. But you don't have to turn over all your cards, and why would you? So that's one of the reasons why he's like, I can't speak on that. Because these people are still going through litigation. Not everybody is serving their prison term right now.
Right.
Some people are still being investigated.
Mm-hmm.
So that has a lot to do with it. For me, the only question that I cared about was, did the president commit a crime? Yes or no? Mm-hmm. And would you recommend impeachment? Well, he's not going to say that. He's going to say, he did not say that the president did not commit any crime.
Right.
What he said was, that is a matter for Congress to decide.
Yeah, he did keep repeating.
They asked him, though, they did ask him, are you saying that this person works for the president, you would indict? And he was like, yes, I would indict. That's all. That's all you needed to hear. If you were a member of the House of Representatives or of the United States Senate, and you could listen to that man say that and still think that that the president of the United States does not deserve to be impeached, I am really afraid for the soul of this country, because how can that be okay?
It's not okay. And from that post that you had tagged me in, I'm gonna just let the
Mm-hmm.
people listening know. Mueller investigation by the numbers: 40 plus million recovered for U.S. government, 37 people and entities charged with crimes, 25 ongoing criminal cases referred, 7 convictions, including five top Trump campaign officials, 10 instances of obstruction, and no exoneration. Now, a lot of people is asking, like, do you think it'll ever be changed as far as a sitting president cannot be indicted? A lot of people think that needs to be amended. Do you think that'll ever
Well,
happen?
I don't think it's ever going to be amended, and one of the reasons why I think the founding fathers were afraid of they just got out of a monarchy, so they didn't want a king. But at the same time, they didn't want people to play the games that this president now is playing, where he has political enemies and he wants to use the Attorney General's office to actually investigate his political enemies. That's scary to me. We do that. That stuff happens in other countries where your political enemies come up missing or they get thrown in prison, or, we don't do that here in the United States of America. We do not go after our political enemies in that way. We just don't. That's what we have elections, free elections for. Mm-hmm. We let the people decide. We don't use the state as a weapon. We just don't do that.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons why they wanted the Congress to be the ones is they didn't want the office of the presidency to be this volatile place where political enemies could use it as a weapon. Mm-hmm. I understand the logic behind it, but at the same time, I don't know. Maybe there needs to be an amendment that says, okay, maybe we're not going to use it as, as a weapon. Okay. Maybe we still have the impeachment process, but after a person gets out of office, if there's enough there in any type of investigation, they need to have their day in court, because nobody should be above the law, including the president of the United States. When you look at the Constitution, it says high crimes and misdemeanors, but it doesn't list what. It's up to the House and the Senate to decide what high crimes and misdemeanors are. But come on now, colluding with a foreign entity to fill an entire presidency, if that's not high crime, I don't know what is.
Right.
Telling your people to lie about it, obstructing an investigation. If it was just you or I, if we had broken the law and done some stuff, and we tampered with witnesses, and we was lying to investigators, and we were dragging our feet, turning over evidence,
we'd be under the jail. We'd be under the jail.
You would never see the light of day.
You ain't lying. We would, and that's what a lot of the Democrats kept saying. Like, everyone that asked them questions was like, if this was anybody else, they would be indicted. So they said nobody is above the law. They kept reiterating that nobody is above the law. But then,
which leads me to the next point, and they're absolutely right. I think the problem is the American public doesn't understand what impeachment is. There's a lot of people in favor of it because they think that removes him from office. No.
Yeah, please explain.
He doesn't. Just because if they get enough people in the House to vote for him to be impeached, that does not remove him from office automatically. That's not how impeachment works. Impeachment is like the indictment that comes down. Like, there's enough there to try him for his high crimes and misdemeanors. Mm-hmm. Then where does the trial go to? It goes over to the next body, to the U.S. Senate. Well, guess what? That's who's in charge of the U.S. Senate, and this is why elections matter. Like, I know some people think that, I don't know, and this is my bias show, and I'm going to be completely honest.
Okay.
some people think it's good to have divided government, divided parties, like how the president is with the Republican Party and how the Democrats have the House. But guess who has the Senate? Republicans have the Senate. And Mitch McConnell, there's no way in Haiti he's going to impeach the president. Mm-hmm. Not from his party. It's not going to happen. There used to be a time where people put party over country over party, but this is not the time. This is not the time. With this U.S. Senate right now, I think Nixon would not have been impeached. He left office because he knew the writing was on the wall. That he knew that they had enough evidence to impeach him for him to be found guilty. Mm-hmm. But he left before that happened. But this guy's arrogant. He already told you he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single voter and not get in trouble. And we're seeing it right now. Mm-hmm. Colluding with the Russians. He lied and obstructed an investigation.
It's playing out in front of all of us.
Put a puppet in the AG's office. So that's another reason why Mueller had to testify in the first place. Mm-hmm. Barr completely overstepped his bounds, got on TV and lied about what was in the report, said it completely exonerated the President of the United States. That's not what the report did at all. And I have plenty of friends who are lawyers who have read it. There's a lot of it that's redacted, so there's a lot of stuff that we don't see. But they're like, even from the stuff that you can clearly see, the words that you can see, they were like, Congress needs to impeach this guy. Like, if he were a regular citizen and he did any of this stuff, he would be in cuffs right now.
And impeachment is basically bringing down an indictment on him, on the president.
It's basically bringing the indictment, and then it goes over to the Senate, and the Senate does the trial. But again, when the Senate is held by Republicans, how likely do you think it is? And see, that's another reason why people are so angry with Pelosi. But I see what Pelosi's doing. Look, and this is chess. This isn't checkers. Mm-hmm. She knows that right now the Republicans aren't going to impeach him. So what happens is, say she gets enough votes on the House to send the articles of impeachment over to the Senate, mm-hmm. and the Senate decides. Because they're already, looking at... I don't know if they're reading the same reports that everyone else is reading. Because to hear them tell it, they're not. So why would you send an indictment over to a house that's friendly to the felon and is going to let him walk? Because that's going to be the narrative. The narrative is going to be Democrats or wanted to steal the seat from us. Mm-hmm. They weren't happy about the election. And look... I didn't get impeached. The Senate didn't find me guilty. Well, of course they didn't find you guilty. It's your party.
Right.
Half of them haven't even read the report. When you ask these people, have they done their due diligence, done their job, and have they read the report? They haven't even read it. How can you get on TV and pontificate about what is what in the report? Or talk about how it's a witch hunt if you haven't even read the report? See, we don't read the report because then it's deniable. We can deny. It's like, I didn't read it, so I don't know if there's actual evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard that a lot of them up there, a lot of the Republicans, did not read the report because they don't want to, I don't know, face the fact or admit to the fact. Like, everybody knows that what he did, something happened, something's going on, something went wrong. The election, what happened was not legal. And it's like people just, I don't know if they're playing dumb or they don't want us to win. They don't want the, Democrats to win.
And I think that's another part of the problem. Because Gore versus the U.S. didn't teach us anything. You would think after we had that happen, when Al Gore ran, that we would have a commission and come up with, we need to have something in place that is going to help us, that if we have to question the validity of an election. Mm-hmm. We have nothing in place in this country to question the validity of an election if something happens. And I think that's part of the problem, because then it's like, well, even if we do this, in my opinion, if you can prove that this man colluded with the Russians to interfere in our election and that he cheated, his whole ticket is invalid.
Right.
In my opinion, that's how it should be. You nor Pence, neither one of you are fit to hold the office. If it trickles down to any of the Senate and Congress seats, if they got any of that Russian money or that Russian help, guess what? You don't get those seats either. Any major legislation that y'all pass, that's illegitimate too in my eyes. Right. All that should be and so you see how it reverberates, and that's another reason why we're having the problems that we're having, because we have nothing in place for anything like that. We've never even considered anything like that. Ever. Right. And so I think part of it is people don't want to open the Pandora's box.
And how would that reflect on because he was running against Hillary? And by the way, somebody named Miss Lady Scoop, she said, Miss Robin, thank you for clarifying all of this. Because that's why I wanted to bring you on, because I know you have a lot of knowledge in politics, and so that's why I wanted to bring you on today. And also, as far as Hillary, since that's who he was running up against, if it was allow for him to be impeached, how would that affect the person that was running up against him? What would happen? It
doesn't. That's what I'm saying. There's no mechanism for that.
Okay.
We have, if you look at the Constitution, it gives you the chain of succession. So she's not in that chain at all, because she's not in the cabinet. She's not in the U.S. Senate anymore, and she lost the election. So there's no recourse for her. Okay. And that's the problem, not just when we're talking about people running for president, but that's the problem when we're running for federal offices, period. We don't have any recourse in this country for dirty politics. People and they've been doing this for decades, especially in our communities. In black and brown communities, they'll send out flyers say, oh, there's going to be a record number of voters, so don't come out the second Tuesday in November. You come out the next Tuesday to vote. Stuff like that. Or just ads that are flat out lying.
Right.
They have turned the tides of elections. And we'll say stuff like, well, we don't know for sure if that's what happened. We don't know for sure. Stop. I am so tired of playing these games where, we can't really speculate. We know that negative ads work. We know that people, and the fines aren't big enough. Even when we find that they have violated SEC rules, they're not big enough. People will pay that fine. They're like, I get to keep the seat, and all I have to do is pay a fine. Yeah. Dirty politics work. It works in this country. I am all for elections that are federally funded. I don't think people should have to. That's another reason why you can't get good quality candidates, because it takes millions of dollars to run for federal office.
Yeah,
way more than that to run for president. People are actually on the phone raising money days after they get elected, because they got to raise money in order to. It's ridiculous. We should take money completely out of it. But we also need to have a way to be accountable to the American voting public when people are doing shady stuff to get into office.
Yeah,
because if all they have to do is pay a fine and they still get to keep their seat, there's no deterrent for dirty politics. If you can still be the president of the United States as long as your party controls, a part of the government that would hand you out an impeachment, you can still keep your seat and collude with a foreign government. That ought to scare people. People need to start asking the question, what is it that Russia wants from him? What is it that Russia has on him?
Yeah, that's the better question. What do they have on him?
What do they have, and what is it that he can give them? And what happens when he's not a useful idiot anymore? Let's just say he's still in office and they decide, we have no more use for him. Then what?
Well, I know
that's all scary to me.
It's really scary, and what's really scary is if nothing does happen, and let's say he goes up for, he's gonna try to get reelected, and a lot of people have been saying that he's going to be reelected. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's a
Well,
possibility?
the problem is, and I'm going to call out any of my fellow left-leaning folks that are watching this.
Mm-hmm.
The man got in the same way he got the nomination, because people sat at home. Because people want to throw away, it's that 80-20 rule. You throw away 80% good for 20% nothing. No candidate is going to give people 100% of what they want. That's politics. It's woven into our documents where there has to be compromise, where there's oversight of each, of the different branches, so that no branch is too powerful. And that's the problem. People think they need to get it. Oh, I need to be able to have a beer with somebody. Look, you don't go to a doctor just because a doctor looks like a person that you can have a beer with. Mm-hmm. You go because they know what they're talking about. They're good at what they do. They put in the work. They went to they got their undergrad in biology or chemistry. They got a really nice score on that MCAT. They went to med school. The residency was stellar. All this crap about, I'm not interested in having a president. This is not a popularity contest for me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is in high school when I voted on the prom king or queen. I want someone who gives a crap about the future of this country. I have grandchildren now, for my grandchildren. And we need to stop as left-leaning or even center people going, oh, well, this person did this, unless it's something completely just unforgivable or unmanageable. Mm-hmm. Like, saying that this person has to pick up every little box or I'm not voting for them. The only way this man gets back in is if people sit at home.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, literally, that's the only way he gets in.
Gotta get out there. I mean,
you have to get out there and vote, because guess what? His base is fired up. He doesn't have to have, and because of the way it's set up, because of the way the electoral college is set up, he don't have to have a lot of votes.
Mm-mm.
They just have to pick up a couple of key precincts here and there and here in certain cities and certain states. And, a lot of states, there's only, 2 states, Nebraska and Maine, that split their electoral votes. Every place else is winner take all. Mm-hmm. So all you got to do is suppress votes here and there. And trust me, every campaign hires people to count the votes. Mm-hmm. What I need to do to get to, the majority to take all these electoral votes in this state. There is a science to it. So, but his people are fired up.
Yeah,
but there's not more of them than there are. There's not more of them than there are everyone else. So everyone else needs to get up and get out and vote. Yes. This is the reason why the narrative is they're trying to steal the seat from me. You see how you see that playing out on TV every day?
Yeah. Because
they're trying to gin up people for the election.
Well, you guys, if there's anybody out there who did not vote last time, and y'all do not like how things are going, then, you have to get out there. We really do. And I know they have commercial after commercial, day and night, when it comes around election time. And like you said, a lot of people still be sitting home like, I don't need to vote. My vote don't count. It does make a big difference. It really makes a big difference, and every vote does count. So
everything is political. Yeah. Everything from the food you eat to how fast your car can go. Mm-hmm. Everything is political, and if you're not making the choice, somebody else is making the choice for you. Exactly. There's a reason why some people want to make it harder for everyday people to vote and not easier. If it didn't matter, there wouldn't be things to hinder you from voting. It matters.
Yes, it really does. It really matters. So you guys, when voting time comes around, get your peeps, your cousins, your brothers, sisters, children over the age of 18, everybody, the elderly, get them out there. Put them in a car.
And
drive
for folks
them.
who live in Nebraska, not only can you register online at the Secretary of State's office, but it's we make it so easy to vote. Like, say you have people who are homebound, or you have people that work, so they can't take off the full day to wait in a line if the election is going to be huge and they're predicting long lines. You don't have to worry about none of that.
Yeah.
They will send the ballot. You can request to have a ballot sent to your house. I volunteer on lots of campaigns, especially during presidential years. And last year was the first year in a few years that I had actually not had a ballot mailed to my house. And it's because I was so busy that I forgot to turn in my request for it. But you can have, now some states you have to be homebound, or you have to be this, you have to be that. Not in Nebraska. You can just request it, turn the slip of paper in, and they will send. And there's lots of campaigns who have agents. We call them ballot agents. They go through a special training, and if you need somebody to pick the ballot up for you, because this is nothing that burns me up. These are ballots.
Right.
You shouldn't have to put stamps on them to turn them in, but you can't. You got to have more than one stamp on your envelope if you're going to mail it in.
Okay.
But there are agents of different. There are agents that work for campaigns during election time, and they can come and pick up your ballot. I've had them do it for my grandmother several times. There's ways for you to make sure that your ballot was actually casted. And also, when you go in, if you're one of those people that are like, no, I don't trust that. Like, I want to see someone handle my ballot. I want to make sure that nobody's throwing my ballot away, because we've heard about stuff in the Carolinas that happened. If you want to go in face to face, and you know that you're registered to vote, and you have always voted this precinct, and you know that they didn't change the precinct, don't let anyone ever turn you away from voting. You can ask for a provisional ballot.
Okay.
Now, they'll count the provisional ballots after they count all the regular ballots, but you can ask for a provisional ballot. You can fill that ballot out, and you can turn it in and vote that day. They'll give you a card, and with a special number on it, you can go and check to see if they've actually counted your ballot. Don't ever let somebody just turn you away. Also, in the state of Nebraska, if you are an ex-felon, you've been off the paper for 2 years, paid your debt to society, you can register and vote, no questions asked. We're not trying to be like Florida. We're not asking you to pay another fine. We're not asking you to go before no parole board or none of that. You
that's awesome.
paid your debt to society. It's been 2 years. Register.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much, Robin, for coming online with us today and going live with us today, because a lot of people just don't understand what the total logistics of everything that's going on. So I really do appreciate you for coming on today. Everybody say thank you, Robin.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Robin. You guys have a blessed day.
Thank you so much. And when it gets closer to election time again, if you don't mind coming back, I would love to have you back.
I think what I'm going to do the next time is I'm going to bring with me the chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party Black Caucus. She's awesome. She's doing some great things. She's lighting a fire up on the black people here, and you know, we got some good things coming down the pipe with that. There is a Facebook page, everyone, for if you are a black voter, but you can join anyways. You can come in and help us out. There's one for the Native American Caucus. There's one for the state party. We're all online. They're engaged, and they're looking to get people engaged, whether you're thinking about running for office or whether you want to learn how to register people to vote. We always look for volunteers. So, you know, look us up. It's you'll make some lifelong friends, and you'll help change your country and your state for the better.
Thank you, and that's what we are trying to do exactly. So with that being said, you guys, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Once again, thank you, Robin, for joining us today and enlightening us on everything that's been going on in the government. And you guys have a wonderful afternoon. Have a blessed day. And until we meet again, stay safe, be blessed, and I'm out. Good night.